Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we'll talk about some middle games again. Today we'll talk about the topic. It's called the symmetrical pawn structure in the middle game. The symmetrical pawn structure in the middle game is really sort of a static position. It's really a problem sometimes to play these types of setups because you don't have so much winning chances. Because we sometimes when we play a middle game we like dynamic pawn structures. We like asymmetrical positions. We like really open positions. We like the positions in which we can maybe create some attacks with our pawns, but the symmetrical pawn structure is really not such a good position that you can accomplish in your early stage of the game or in the middle game, because you don't have so many winning chances in the continuation. So what are the rules of the symmetrical pawn structures in the middle game? So first of all, you shouldn't, probably in some occasions you have to improve some pawn moves, but you shouldn't basically play with your pawns. When you have accomplished it's a symmetrical pawn structure, you shouldn't you should try really to avoid pawn moves in the continuation. So the main idea about the symmetrical pawn structures is that you should try to improve the position of your pieces. You should place your pieces on the best squares. Basically we are targeting our opponent's half of the board. We are searching for squares that we can occupy with our minor pieces, also with our rooks, also with our queen. We are really searching only for improvements of the position. So the first instructive game that I wanted to show you in this symmetrical pawn structure setup, it's a game played by Gergard Levy against Akiba Rubinstein. Akiba Rubinstein, he was really sort of an uncrowned king in chess. He was really a great tactician. Here is a position black to move. You see we have really a symmetrical pawn structure. It's really the same. We have now 4 pawns on the board. We have here 4 pawns on the king side, and we have only 2 pawns here on the queen side. The pawn structure is really symmetric, and now you should really only search for improvements of the position of the pieces and try to occupy your opponent's half of the board. Here of course Akiba Rubinstein played first the move rook on d8. Of course we want to play with the rook, with the discovered attack possibilities here against the queen on d2. So you see it also meets with the idea to play with all of our pieces, to participate with all of our pieces in the attack. So that's why we should follow this basic principle to play with the piece that hasn't played so far. You see now it's a simple improvement of the rook. Now what we want to do is of course also to improve the position of the bishop by playing bishop on b7. So here queen on e2 was played. So you see by this improvement of the position, Akiba Rubinstein forced now white to get out of this d file mess, and then he can play simply bishop on b7. And let's search now for this main targets in white's position. Here white simply cancelled. What are the main targets? What pieces can be improved, and what squares can be occupied maybe in our opponent's half of the board? So if we see this position, this knight on f6 is not so good. It doesn't have good possibilities. Maybe it has some improvements on g4, but here the knight on c6 is also not good. It cannot jump anyway. It's a little bit cut off by this pawn on b4. You don't have also the possibilities to jump on d4. But the worst piece in black's position is the bishop on b7. So how to improve the position of the bishop and still continue with our active play, and try maybe even to improve 2 pieces in one particular move. And of course Akiba Rubinstein found the move knight on e5. You see now this move really forces again white to do something, and that's really important in the static setups, because now after knight takes on e5 we have bishop takes on e5, and as I said, don't push pawns if not necessary. Now you see Gergard Levy played simply f4, and it was his main mistake, because he created now new pawn structures. Now the pawn structure is still sort of symmetrical. It can be improved of course, but while pushing pawns in the symmetrical pawn structure setups, you are creating many weaknesses. Now you see we have now a new weakness. We have the weakness here on e4. It's a weak square. We have here weakness, it's the square here on g4, but the main problem is that we have also this weak pawn on e3, and this is this f4 pawn is also sort of a target because it's only supported by this e3 pawn. So this is the setup we want to crack. Here of course bishop on c7 was played by Akiba Rubinstein, and now you see after e4 it seems that white has improved the position because white has created now a very dynamic and mobile pawn structure in the center. So white has also advanced his space advantage here on the 4th rank. But as I said, while pushing pawns in the symmetrical setups, you're leaving also spaces behind. Now you see there are many holes in white's camp, and now we have many weaknesses. We have now even this f3 weakness, the e3 weakness. We have also the d3 weakness. We have also, of course, this b3 weakness. So there are now many targets. In the continuation, rook from a to c8 was played. Again, I'm pointing you out. You see, Akiba Rubinstein hasn't played with a particular pawn. He has only improved all of his pieces. He hasn't pushed a pawn in this symmetrical setup. He played simply rook on c8. Now he has participated with all of his pieces in the attack, and now after e5 it seems that gets a tempo, but now it's basically a problem because here bishop on b6 we have this counter attack first with the check, and you see because white pushed the pawns too far, now we have many weaknesses. These bishops are aiming against the white's king, and it's really deadly already here. King on h1, now knight on g4. If you take, then we have of course the bishop is hanging here on d3, so we have rook takes on d3, and also with the possibility to double up rooks, and also then our main target would be maybe here this g2 pawn with the support of this bishop. It would be really dangerous here for white. So bishop on e4 was played. White desperately tried now to close the light square diagonal, and again I want you just to show how to play in the setups. Again we are trying for counterattacks, again we are trying for improvements of the position, and again we are trying for some counter ideas, counterattack ideas, counter threats sort of. And here of course Akiba Rubinstein found the move queen on h4, again with an immediate checkmate threat. That's why g3, and now Akiba, really one of the best tacticians maybe in chess history, he played rook takes on c3. Very nice move, very tricky, because the knight is the key defender of this bishop on e4. If you take bishop takes on b7, then we have even here rook takes on g3. If you play with the rook here, then we have again this powerful move, and you cannot protect this pawn anymore on h2. So if you play something like rook on c2, then knight takes on h2. If you take, then we have queen on g4. If you try bishop on c4, you see we can simply take the queen, and this is now really a favorable game here for black. It's basically game over. If you try something like bishop takes on c3 here, then bishop takes on e4 is very dangerous. If you try something like rook takes on rook on f3 to cover here this diagonal, of course if you take with the queen, it's an immediate checkmate threat here on h2, so that's why you could simply take, and again with the same idea. So after rook takes on c3, g takes h4 was played here by Retlevi, and here he simply took the queen. But now here Akiba Rubinstein has again a very powerful attack. Of course, if you take the rook, then we have bishop takes on e4, and here in the continuation Akiba played rook on h3. Very nice move, and in this position white resigned because you cannot take of course the rook, and you cannot prevent black from checkmating you here on h2. So as I said, you see the critical moment, and the mistake in this position was to play the move e5 here, or even here this e4 and f4 moves were really it seems that white gained some space, but really with these two bishops, I hope you realize that black has a very nice counterplay against his pawns. Here the problem is that you have really left too many spaces behind, and that's why white got punished because of this dangerous play here. So let's see now another position. It was a legendary game played by Garry Kasparov against Anatoly Karpov. It was in their World Championship match in 1986. So it was really a dynamic game, I think, because here Garry Kasparov really tried to improve the position all of the time through the whole game. Here after bishop takes on b7, rook on c7 with an attack on the bishop, And now when we get attacked in this symmetrical setups, again we have symmetrical setups, you see we have this only one pawn here on the queen side and here, although it's the pawn structure is not the same, it's not fully symmetrical here, but I hope you realize what I trying to say, because still we have here four pawns on the king side, and again also black is also 4 pawns on the king side. When we're playing such positions, we want to stay active with our pieces. We want to occupy, as I mentioned, our opponent's half of the board. So we want to place pieces here on this three ranks, even if it's possible maybe on the 8th rank. So when we get attacked, we are searching for best squares that we can occupy. And now the ideas of course are maybe to play bishop on a6 or bishop on e4. These are the candidate moves now for white, pardon me. Now you should find the best continuation. Garry Kasparov chose here bishop on a6, probably because after bishop on e4 maybe f5 now would be sort of an idea, although it would force again black to create some more weaknesses. But in this position I think black can handle this bishop on c1. You see white cannot participate in the attack with this dark square bishop, because black has here a powerful knight on c4. So that's why you see it was really a great move here by Garry Kasparov to play bishop on a6. He played on a counter attack, stayed on the other side of the board, he stayed on the 6th rank with his pieces, and that's how you should play this symmetrical setups. Now you see, simply keeping attacking. These are now simple threats, it's nothing special, nothing complicated that Garry Kasparov is playing here. After knight on e5, again we are getting attacked. So where should we place the queen? Now we have again several candidate moves. We can play queen on e3, queen on d4, queen on e4, or queen on I don't know, queen on d2 is a possibility. Of course queen on c2 or c3 c4 is not possible because of the rook. So here you see queen on e3 was played by Garry Kasparov, again with the counter attack against the knight. So we have now knight on c4 again queen on e4. You see Garry is staying active with his queen. After knight on d6 we have queen on d3. Again we are staying very active with the queen, not allowing some counterplay possibilities by this light square bishop, because there were also some threats to play bishop on b5. Here rook on c6 was played, and now you see again sort of a counter attack. We are playing now bishop on a3 with an attack on the knight on d6. Bishop on c8, bishop takes, knight takes on c8, and now rook on d1. Very important, we want to occupy of course the d file. We want to now regroup with all of our pieces. We want to bring our rooks in the attack. Queen takes on d3, rook takes on d3, and you see Garry Kasparov has won the battle on the d file. It's now very important, although these two knights are playing a very nice defensive setup here for black, but I think white has this decisive advantage, because we can always occupy here the 7th rank. If this knight moves somewhere, then you cannot get attacked. Of course the possibilities here is to play knight on b6 after a potential rook on d7, but then this knight is only a defender of this 7th rank, and of course you don't want to place your pieces like that. Here after f6 we have knight on d4. Again you see Garry Kasparov is creating simple threats, not pushing pawns. I hope you realize these ideas. It's not something, as I said, complicated. Garry Kasparov in the continuation hasn't played with a pawn at all. He simply played on this improvement of the positions, simple threats and attacks against minor pieces and weak pawns here. So rook on b6, we have bishop on c5, again simple threat, rook on a6, and now knight on b5. We have rook on c6, now takes, knight takes, and here we have finally occupied now the 7th rank. Now black will need many moves in order to kick away this rook from the square of d7. Knight on g6 was played, and now Garry Kasparov simply took the pawn. Here in the continuation simply tried to push the pawn. Here now finally, when we have the decisive advantage, we are now 1 pawn up in an endgame. Of course you should push your past pawns, and that's also a very nice move. Now you see it was after a couple of moves, after 10 moves, Garry Kasparov pushed the pawn, but that was only because he gained the pawn, not before that. He simply played on this improvements of the pieces. Rook on b8, we have e3, h5, and now king on g2, e5, rook on d3, king on h7, and now simply trying to trade off the rooks here. Simple trade of rooks, and now knight on c7, again with an improvement of the position. And now our idea is simply going straight forward, and many moves were played from this point on, but Garry Kasparov eventually won that game. And you see how it's, as I said, it wasn't really such a complicated game with the simple ideas to not push pawns, because Karpov played with pawns here in the continuation of the game. He created weaknesses, that weaknesses then Garry Kasparov has attacked, and of course won the game then after that. So let's see now another example. It's a game played by Petrosian, here with the white pieces against Robert Bayen. And here you see again we have this symmetrical setup. Now again here Petrosian played this move, improvement of the position, so not playing with the pawn, playing with pieces. Very important, queen on b6, rook on c1, here bishop on e7, and now you see again simple threat, counter attack. Here queen on the queen is under attack, with bishop on c7, we have queen on a7, and now bishop on d6. And now you see again we have occupied a very important rank. We have placed now a very powerful knight on d6. So again, I hope you realized Petrosian hasn't pushed pawns here. He simply played with his pieces. Queen on b8, we have rook on d1. Of course you cannot take this knight because of some discovered attack possibilities with bishop takes on h7. Bishop on b7 was played, and now knight on g5, again an attacking move. On the other side of the board we have g6, and now queen on c7, bishop on d5, and now finally b3. This b3, it's not a problem that we have moved now this pawn, because it doesn't create weaknesses. It simply prevents, of course, white to take this pawn on a2. It's not a problem, but I hope you realize in this critical moments of the game, Petrosian simply played with the pieces, not with the pawn. So rook on a7, queen takes, knight takes, and now e4. Now this pawn move comes with the attack, so it's perfectly fine. We have bishop on c6, and now e5, we have knight on d5, and again h4, simply fixing this two very powerful knights, because they're now on the other side of the board. When we can play on outposts, of course you should do that. If you can fix some pieces on the other side of the board, of course you have to support them with pawns. So h6, we have knight on e4, bishop on a8, now to g3, knight on c6, and now f4, creating even another support of this e5 pawn. This e5 pawn is basically our main protector of this knight on d6. It's really sort of a fixed setup here on the other side of the board, so that's why we should hang on to this very important space advantage. That's why this f4 move very important. Knight on d4, we have rook on c5, knight on f5, and now rook on c1. You see again improvements of the position. Simply now we are playing on the c file. Knight takes on d6, rook on d7, and now simply a4. Knight on b4, bishop on e2, we have b takes a4, we have b takes a4, and now f6. Again a pawn move by black. It creates again new weaknesses. That's why here Petrosian used this moment, and now after f5 we have bishop on e2. Now again we are playing against this weakness on a6. Here g5 was played, and now rook on c8, we have rook on d8, rook on c7, we have g takes f4, and now rook on b8, we have king on f2, knight on d5, and you see here rook on a7, rook on b2, and in this position after rook on g1, black resigned because the threat is really dangerous. We have some checkmate threats here by the rook on g7, so that's why in this position Bayen simply resigned. So as said, very important, when we have symmetrical pawn structures, let's go back, not pushing pawns, try to improve the position of pieces. Here in this position Rubinstein played knight on e5. He didn't play with pawns at all in the continuation of the game. You see white did some pawn moves, created weaknesses, and that's why he got punished, and Rubinstein won this game with a very nice tactical queen sacrifice. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you realized these ideas. Meanwhile, you can watch my other basics in chess videos with some other opening principles, middle game strategies, and the end game strategies. And you can also watch my chess tactics and chess puzzles videos if you want to see the best tactics that can happen to you in a chess game. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.